How about you guys are all hot. How does a plant-eating animal cool themselves? I've been watching you guys. I have not seen one of you panting. How does a meat-eating animal cool itself? Not a one of you have seen panting. I'm waiting. You're all sweating, just like other plant-eating animals. And when it comes to drinking, I'm going to watch you at dinner tonight. How does a plant-eating animal drink water? It sips. And how does a meat-eater? I better not see any of you laughing tonight either. Okay. Oh, jeez. What's your thoughts? Okay. Then what's your thoughts about this? Why? I didn't do that to be mean, but why do you react that way? You think your cat would react that way? You think you put carrots down in front of your cat, or a pineapple? You think your cat's going to get excited about it? No, it's because of the fact that you were created to respond positively to fruits and vegetables, and disgustingly to the first scene I showed you. This is not an accident. Okay. So it goes all the way: anatomy, physiology, psychology, mental, and so on. All right, let's take a look at the world picture. If you look around the world, you see people who eat high carbohydrate diets are trim and healthy. Those are people in Africa, Asia, the Middle East. People who eat low carbohydrate, in other words, low plant food diets like the United States and Western Europe, are fat and sick. Your friends, this is one of the things that you want to tell your friends. When they say carbohydrates are bad for you, they make you fat and sick, you shouldn't be eating carbohydrates. Don't they tell you that? Don't they tell you that carbohydrates turn to sugar, it makes you fat? Don't eat carbohydrates, that's how you get diabetes. They tell you all these things. Okay, you stop them and you say, well, wait a minute. How about the millions, in fact, probably over 1 billion people in the world who live on carbohydrate as their meal plan? Let's go to Asia for a minute and look at the people from Asia. In Asian countries, the same word for rice is food. For example, in Japan, cooked rice, the word for cooked rice is meal. And for breakfast, it's called morning rice. That's the word in Japan. In China, it is exactly the same word for rice and food. And in China, they have an expression: a meal without rice is like a beautiful woman with only one eye. Don't you think that says it all? Or instead of saying, how are you, the Chinese ask, have you had your rice today? In India, the rice is the first food a new bride offers her husband. And in Indonesia, no marriage until she can skillfully prepare rice. That's how important these carbohydrates are. All athletes, all endurance athletes, follow high carbohydrate diets without exception. I mean, if they're going to win. Here's some of the athletes I've had a chance to work with. Carl Lewis is probably my most famous athlete. I met Carl Lewis in 1990, taught him the McDougall diet. Subsequent to that, he describes the next 3 years following our diet as the best years of his whole career. He set the world record for the 100-meter dash. He did the 3 best long jumps ever done, and he won 3 gold medals on our program. And in fact, in his cookbook that came out a couple of years ago, I mentioned twice. It's called Very Vegetarian. Mary All, she's taken between number 2 and number 9 in triathlons, women's triathlons all over the world. She could hardly run before she discovered a high carbohydrate diet, and she wears t-shirts and hats that say, I'm on the McDougall diet. And then we have Ruth Heydrich. Many of you know Ruth Heydrich. If you don't, I'm sure she's going to be a guest here to speak sometime in the near future. Fantastic lady. I've known her for 22 years. She came to my office 22 years ago, Ruth did. She had been a marathon runner for 12 years. But a disaster hit her. She developed breast cancer and it metastasized to her lungs. And she came in to see me and she said, is there anything I can do? And I said, well, I don't really know, but this is what I would do. I would change my diet. And she said, well, I don't really know what you're talking about, or probably don't even believe what you're saying. And I said, well, look, here's a couple of file cabinets full of research material. Why don't you sit down and read it? And so she spent 2 days in my office, and that day she changed her diet. And this year, she expects to win her 1,000th gold medal as a triathlon runner, and she'll be 70 years old. Now, don't misinterpret me. I'm not trying to tell you that a plant-based diet is going to cure cancer. But, there are people who have gotten miraculous health benefits from eating a plant-based diet. So just to summarize, all the evidence points to a plant-based diet. Religion, economy, this is the cheapest way to eat. I can take you to Costco, and I can feed your family for $30 for a month. The epidemiologic data, which I showed you in relationship to disease, animal rights, the animals are real happy if you're not a meat eater. Environmental issues, human history, scientific research, athletic performance, anatomy, physiology, everything says you should be a plant eater, and everybody knows it. In fact, they know it to the point where we can have cartoons like this. This was Bizarro. He says, I'll have the cruelty tortured for its entire life, kept alive with drugs, slaughtered inhumanely, processed unsanitarily, and cooked at very high temperatures to kill the salmonella sandwich. And she says, fries with that? Now, why is that funny? It's funny because everybody knows that meat is a serious health hazard. In fact, the problems with meat in our diet are extensive, and you could artificially divide them into different categories and focus on specific nutrients. It's artificial because it's really the whole picture that causes the problem. It's not just the fact that it's high calorie, it promotes cancer and obesity and diabetes. It's the fact that it's high fat. It's the fact that it lacks fiber. It's all kinds of qualities of the meat products. They are high calorie, high fat, high in saturated fat, high in protein, high in acid, which wipes out your bones and gives you osteoporosis, high in cholesterol, which rots your arteries, high in iron, which rots your arteries, no dietary fiber, no carbohydrate, no vitamin C, no calcium, deficient in essential fatty acids, loaded with environmental contaminants, cooked to produce more carcinogens, and full of microbes, tons of microbes. So now that you know all this, what you need to ask yourself, and if you happen to be a physician, what you need to ask about your patients is just a very simple question. How much plant food am I going to include in my diet, and how much animal food am I going to exclude? Really, because all the evidence, I just showed it to you, all the evidence from every point of view says you should be eating more plants and less meat. So the only question on the table is how much? As a doctor, I've only been able to give one kind of advice. People come to me and they said to me, Dr. McDougall, I'm tired of coughing and I don't want to get lung cancer. How many cigarettes should I smoke? Okay. My liver hurts. How much more whiskey should I drink? You come to me and you say, look, I love this husband of mine. He's had one heart attack. How much meat should I feed him? Well, how good's his insurance? Just kidding. You got the answer, right? Okay. Let's talk about vegetarian diets for just a minute. Vegetarian diets, there are all kinds of them, and I want to make clear that I am not a vegetarian, first of all. Now, I'm not a vegetarian. I refuse to be a vegetarian until vegetarians become healthy. I eat turkey every other Thanksgiving in protest of being called a vegetarian. Now, when all the other vegetarians that you see speak here or you meet in your goings-on in the world are trim and healthy and an example of good health, then I'll become a vegetarian. But until then, I'll protest every other Thanksgiving. Because some vegetarians are very unhealthy. For example, we have vegetarians that live on chicken and fish, and they call themselves vegetarians. They live on dairy and eggs, and they're full of fat and full of cholesterol. Then we have the doughboy vegetarians who live on sugar and white flour. And then we have the wino doughboy vegetarians that are drunks. There are lots of those. They're still vegetarians. Then we have the soy boys that live on fake food. They have fake bacon for breakfast, fake turkey for lunch, fake cheese sandwiches for dinner, fake ice cream, fake everything. It's a fake diet. It's not healthy. And we have the greasy vegetarians and we have the raw fooders. Raw fooders live on nuts and seeds and fruit. In other words, they live on fat and sugar. That's not what I try and teach. I try and teach a whole plant food-based diet with exercise and clean habits. And if you happen to want to eat unhealthy foods on occasion, that should be your choice. This is the diet that is starch-centered with the addition of fruits and vegetables. Be sure to understand that starch is the center. It is not a diet of broccoli, cauliflower, and sprouts. Not enough calories. It is a diet. It is a diet based on starches like rice, corn, potatoes, beans, and so on. Now, there's these foods which are supposed to be delicacies. These are rich foods for special occasion. But in America, we have a holiday every meal. We start out with breakfast for Easter for breakfast, and we go on to Thanksgiving and Christmas for lunch and dinner, and then we have a birthday party after dinner. The kind of results that we get on this kind of diet